I found, what is the definition of a good haircut? Because I think everyone who's a stylist and a cutter now has cut hair and gone, this may be some of the best work I've ever done, right? And I should be on the front of Vogue. And what does the client do? And then haven't you ever done a cut that you go, oh, dear God, just get me through the cut. And I swear I'll retire tomorrow. I'll stop. And the client goes, oh my God, I love this. But what I've learned is that it's very subjective. What's not subjective is the way that they feel.
Welcome to the Hairpreneur Show, the show that teaches you, the hair pro, how to work smarter so you can make more, work less, and live a purpose-driven life on your schedule, not your clients'. I'm your host, Ryan Whedon, and each week I'll teach you awesome, actionable ways to tap into your personal greatness. Through marketing, mindset, and confidence training, it's time to unlock the next level of you. Let's grow. Hey everybody, thanks for coming back here to the Hairpreneur Show. I'm your host, Ryan Whedon. Today I have somebody very special and I am so excited to pick his brain and to learn more about what he does and share it with our industry and share it with the world. His name is Jay Williams. He is a speaker, entrepreneur, and author of the books Leave Your Mark, The Thinking, Skills, and Behaviors of Influencers, as well as This Versus That, Better Thinking, Better Choices, Better Leader. Jay, I want to welcome you to the podcast.
I'm excited to be here. I'm looking forward to it. You're in California and I'm in Philadelphia and it's snowing here. So are we going through the same thing?
First snow of the season, right?
First snow of the season. Yeah. So we'll be dressed very different for this podcast.
Yeah. When it's cold here, I look at, what is it? It's 69 degrees here now. And it's, and I'm cold.
I guess it's all relative, right?
It really is. Well, you mentioned to me that you used to live in San Diego and Escondido. And so, you get that California blood and it's a really it's a weak place to be because we get cold at the slightest little breeze or shiver and we just need a hoodie and we think it feels like winter.
Well, you said you live in Escondido, and my first cup of coffee was in Escondido. So I'm not a coffee drinker, all these years. It was my one and only cup because I was in Escondido and I was in retail at the time. We were opening a department store. And you said it was 69. It got like 65, but being in California, we weren't used to that, of freezing. So my first and only cup of coffee and Escondido were kind of synonymous. Oh, now you, Ryan. Those three things.
Very cool.
Yes.
Well, I'm excited to be here. You seem to have quite a storied life and you've done a lot of great things as an entrepreneur and speaker and author. And I want to dive into as much as we can today. I know that one thing that we want to highlight is your book, Leave Your Mark, The Thinking, Skills, and Behaviors of Influencers. Can you tell me about that book, please?
Yeah, I'll start with the title. I've always believed, and I don't know if I heard it or it is just something inherent, that you want some return for your time spent in life. And you think of the movie now, it's during Christmas. It's Jimmy Stewart, It's a Wonderful Life. I mean, if you watch it, that was the whole premise, is that he thought, hey, did I make a difference in people's lives? And for me, it's something personally that I wanted to do. And it sounds altruistic, but I don't know if it's altruistic or narcissistic that you want to, be memorable in someone's life. And so that's where the title came from. And then to be in an industry that the people have such a deep connection to people and are there for major moments in their life, it kind of went hand in hand. And, when you look at this industry specifically and you look at a stylist and you think about the times that they're there in people's life, right? Like it's really from the cradle to the grave, so to speak. And whether it's your child or someone else's or a major moment in your life, like a wedding or a date or a divorce or whatever the case may be, the title, it became more important as I got involved in this industry because I was seeing people on a day-to-day basis over a period of time that had left their marks with people. And, the stylist definitely with the client. And then the client reciprocated or validated it with their loyalty really to the stylist. And so the book was something that was, for me, that was very important. Then when I got in the industry, I got a chance to see firsthand. And I think it's not every profession. It's probably limited to a handful, depending on your mindset. But for stylists, that they have this opportunity to leave their mark every day. And that's good and important work, I think. And so that's where the title of the book came. And then for those who somehow got engaged by the concept of, yes, I want to do it. How do you do it? That's what the book was about, was almost this roadmap of how people do leave their mark, and then defining what kind of mark you leave, because obviously it could be a stain or, something less than, or, God forbid, but you don't leave any mark at all. And what an opportunity it is. So that was the idea behind the first book, Leave Your Mark.
And you're obviously leaving your mark with this, because not only did you take the time to create this book and write it to help other people and other stylists better their lives and the lives of their clients by leaving their mark, you're also contributing 100% of the proceeds to help end child trafficking, right?
Yeah, the idea with the book was that it had to be congruent, what I was saying and what I was doing all the way through. And so being involved in the beauty industry, women are the primary population. And, I think I gain, you see women who are creative, and you see women who are entrepreneurs, and they're moms, and there's managers. And, in America, we're somewhat blessed in that there's opportunity that comes from that. And so with the book, Leave Your Mark, there's an opportunity. How do you perpetuate this? Women that are role models and are doing good things. And so that was the connection as I'm building this out. And then the next thing was this human trafficking. And, Ryan, I thought this was like a third world problem. And so about 7 years ago, someone came to our church and they were talking and I was listening. Not that I wasn't interested. I thought that was somewhere else. And at one point, the guy said, it's happening here. And I was thinking, you mean here like Las Vegas, Los Angeles? And I live outside Philadelphia. And they said, no, right in Pennsylvania. Our infrastructure, our road infrastructure makes it ideal for trafficking human beings. And so I was, even at that point, I was certainly shocked, but I thought it was human beings from another country. Not that it made any less important, but I just wanted to drive home that it was hitting home. I said, no, it's kids, it's people in our area. And so I was able to get involved at a different level there. And then, I'm a guy of faith as well. And I always pray this, Ryan, God, don't ask me to do anything I'm not good at, but please pick something I'm good at to bless others, but don't ask me to do anything I'm not good at. And so the book came out, at the timing of it, and there was an opportunity to perpetuate the perception of women being strong in the contribution and fostering where that was going. And then this human trafficking. And unfortunately, with human trafficking, that's predominantly women. And so with the book, 100% of the proceeds go to an organization that's literally in our backyard. And so they've acquired property and built a home and have multiple businesses so that there's a complete solution. They can take someone in, provide help to them, get them employed so that they can develop a resume and get another job. One of the other things I'd like to give a shout out to, at the same time, I met this gentleman that had an organization called justiceandsoul.org. And some of you listening might recognize that. And his name's Matthew Fairfax. He's out of Seattle. And so we've simultaneously been able to contribute there. And he's doing some incredible work in Cambodia, built a school and then built a salon. So not only could they get out of that loop of human trafficking and learn a skill, they could get a job as well. So that was, and to your point, for everybody who bought Leave Your Mark, simultaneously, they were leaving a mark at the same time because those monies could go towards a school or supporting those causes.
Well, just like you said, we think it's a third world problem. And I've recently come to understand and see more of maybe transparency that it is happening everywhere and it is in our backyard. And in fact, the US is one of the worst countries for human trafficking. And that was absolutely mind blowing for me to hear. And I started following, I would call him a hero, Tim Ballard. Are you familiar with Tim Ballard? And I think it's Our Rescue, his own organization where he actually goes in military, Navy SEAL or something, something that's just, you don't want to mess around with that guy. Right.
Yeah. I saw him at Joe Rogan. I listened to him on the Joe Rogan podcast.
Yeah.
His story moved me to tears. If we're being completely transparent, I remember, yes. And you're not thinking here in our country that we're even consumers of that. One of the things that's great is, as this became a conversation, was that I didn't know, but there are stylists who are educated in spotting human trafficking. And so for those of you who are listening, it could be as simple as you going into maybe a nail salon and seeing large pallets of food or backpacks and things like that. And so there's, trust me, much more to it. But one of the things that was great is that there are several stylists, and the state was doing something at some point to educate. I don't know if that's still the case. And that's why, from a societal standpoint, when you look at a stylist, I mean, the fact that, they're going to see somebody 6 to 50 times a year, that they're there for every major moment in someone's life, that, it's one of 6 professions it's legal to touch someone. They do have unique access to people and their thoughts and their emotions, right? Because someone's sitting in the chair and they're at these special times, or they feel vulnerable because of the touch. And so, from a societal standpoint, a stylist, they have a great opportunity to spot things. And so you could see how everything really made sense to pull all these pieces together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I heard that some of these handlers would bring their victims into salons to get them maybe pretty or fixed up or something for, I don't know, something terrible, obviously, but which is why in our industry too, it is very important that we do learn about this and know that it is happening all over the place. And I think we should be trained to be able to spot some situations that don't look right, that we can step in and do whatever we can to help prevent that or help stop it further from escalating.
I couldn't agree with you more. One of the things I talk about in the book, and I actually put it in both books, because foundationally, it's imperative, I think, to your success. And so we're going to have a conversation today, and some of it will have a compelling human case and some a compelling business case, and hopefully both. Is that stylists generally are empaths more often than not, meaning that they take on the energy of the thinking of the people around them. So when people sit in their chair and they're sad, they're happy, those are two extremes, and everything in between, they pick it up. And so what I write about in the book is about emotional intelligence. And obviously, I'm not the one who discovered it. But what I do is to lay the groundwork for a stylist where there is value in emotional intelligence. So statistically, science has proven that 58% of your performance, regardless of your profession, has to do with your emotional intelligence. I shouldn't say regardless of your profession. 70% of the time, people with a higher emotional intelligence outperform their counterparts with a higher IQ. The exception may be a doctor. So Ryan, if you needed heart surgery, right, life-saving heart surgery, and you have me and you have this woman who has her, her degree from Harvard. I'm a really nice guy, but she's really good. Okay, good. I won't take it personal, and I understand. But that's an example of where emotional intelligence doesn't supersede. 70% of the time, though, emotional intelligence does come into play. And so when working with stylists, we're adept at developing our technical skills, our cutting and our coloring skills, and rightfully so. So anything I say about emotional intelligence is not to diminish your IQ, or let's say your technical skills. And by the way, your IQ is your ability to problem solve. It's not your knowledge. There's a common misconception there. But in any event, let's just say technical skills. It's to double down on your EQ, your emotional intelligence. The good news is that your emotional intelligence can grow and grow and grow. Your IQ is fixed from 15 to 50. So the good news is you have 100% control of the thing that accounts for, at least what studies show, 58% of your success. And I think when you look in our industry, and it could be any industry, but just because of, where you and I are having the conversation today, a stylist now that wants to make a difference and to leave their mark. And even if you go, Jay, I'm just in it to cut hair, and things like retention and referral and rebooking and reviews and relationships and recommendations are important to you. The emotional intelligence and the ability to, let me give a working definition just for anyone who's listening and may not have come across it. Emotional intelligence is just simply your ability to identify and understand an emotion in yourself and others, and then adjust your behavior accordingly.
Right. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're just an emotional case.
No, so which our industry would be leading the pack.
Right.
If that was the case.
Right, exactly.
No, so you bring up an interesting distinction, because have you ever met someone who says, hey, you know what, I'm just in a bad mood? Because you can identify it, that's not the full definition. And you thinking about in our business, if someone came in and said, I'm in a bad mood, the reason I'm in a bad mood is I got in a fight with my spouse because of money. So now you identify it and you understand it, but you don't change your behavior. That's not emotional intelligence. It's identifying that I'm upset. It's understanding it's because of money. And that's adjusting your behavior to come in and go, you know what? I'm going to work as though I'm just working for tips today. I'm going to be kind and gentle and attentive, and I'm going to be the best experience in their life today. That's emotional intelligence. And over, studies have validated that people that have the ability to identify and understand not only themselves, but others. Say your client comes in and maybe they're a little quiet, they're a little distant, maybe they're a little defensive. Somebody can identify it and then understand it is not enough. Some people go, well, I just won't talk to them. I just won't bother them. I'll just get them in and out. Someone with a high emotional intelligence would check in with them and just tell them, I don't want to assume anything. Is everything okay? I was in Atlanta, and by the way, emotional intelligence can show, some people have it innately, Ryan, and which is great. Other people, the good news, if you're listening, like me, I wouldn't say I always had a high emotional intelligence, but you can learn to grow it. But I remember this one story. I was in Atlanta, and there's a young girl, and we were talking about this, and she shared the story that she was new to the floor, and so she would get walk-ins, or somebody was double booked, and they had to accommodate someone. So it was a Saturday, it was really busy. Someone said, can you just take this woman? And so the woman was somewhat disheveled, her hair and her makeup, she's in sweats, and her eyes were swollen as she was relaying the story. And so she said, I didn't know what to say, but she had the cutest Southern accent. I won't try to replicate it. She said, I just knew something was wrong. I didn't know what to do. I just put my hand on her shoulder and said, are you okay? And she said the woman began to sob uncontrollably. And she said, when I came in, it was to get my hair, which you probably didn't know, it was for my wedding, which was today, and it was called off. And the little girl, she's young, in her early 20s or so. She said, can I just give you a hug? Again, high emotional intelligence, something's wrong. Can I fix it? And she said, we had the best conversation. When she left, she said, if you don't mind, I can have my best friend come over. She works here and do your makeup. You look so beautiful. And she said she really looked amazing and smiled when she left. She said, so I didn't really think much about it. About 3 days later, a woman walks in with a dozen roses and 2 bottles of wine. And she said she kind of remembered her, but not really. And the woman said, I just want to thank you. When I was in the other day, what you knew is my fiance had called off the wedding. What you didn't know is that my way to commit suicide. But based on the way you treated me, I reached out and I got some help. I'm in a much better place. And the little girl said, honestly, I didn't know. And it illustrated the point that when someone sits in your chair, people are broken these days. They're broken financially and emotionally and freedom-wise and maybe sexually broken. And we don't know where we're going to find these people. But for people who have a high emotional intelligence, it can be in the moment. And that's really what it is this mindfulness to be in the moment about what's going on emotionally and then make the adjustments. Listen, not everything's going to be a life-saving scenario. But hey, what if I made your day? What if I put a smile on your face? What if I left you just in a better place than I found you? And I think, I'm going to say service provider, but let's talk about stylist, but it's applicable across the board, is that your skill you may get to a point, it may not be enough of a differentiator, meaning that someone else is doing it or they have that same education. And so I think your emotional intelligence and the thinking and skills and behaviors that come along with it become a point of difference. And neuroscientists have narrowed it down to this. Well, one study said that on average, people with a higher emotional intelligence earn $29,000 more a year than their counterparts. And they broke it down even further that each increase in your score, your emotional intelligence score, equates to $1,300 annually. And so I think there's a compelling case that if you're not interested in humanity, Ryan, you wouldn't do it for that reason. You just want to make more money. I say it jokingly, but there's an opportunity to create a scenario that's good for you and that's good for them as well.
So say somebody's listening to this now and they're wanting to have more emotional intelligence and they want to be able to sense what's going on with their clients better, and they feel like it's a skill that you're saying that a lot of hairdressers automatically have that more so than other people in other industries. How can you teach emotional intelligence to somebody? How can somebody get better at it?
Yeah, I love that you asked this question because if we're just talking about IQ, I just throw my hands up in the air and go, there's really nothing you can do. So what you can do is the first thing is there's a book called Emotional Intelligence 2.0, and I highly recommend it. And it was written by two doctors, and it sits on my shelf. It's one of 5 books I constantly reference. And the book in the back of the book, there's a code that you can take a complimentary assessment once you buy the book. And so it'll give you foundationally where you are. And then in the feedback they give you, they let you know what you can do to raise your emotional intelligence. And then 6 months later, they have it automated. They reach back out again so you can see where your progress is. So if somebody's a reader, I absolutely recommend the book. Some of the chapters are half a page long. I mean, their emotional intelligence was high, Ryan, when they wrote the book. So that would be the number one book. If you're in the industry, if you're looking secondarily, this sounds like a shameless plug, but it's not. It's because by the way, I work outside the industry. I do the exact same work. They're just different stories. I mean, what ails stylists and salon owners ails humanity. If you put them in a room and they didn't discuss their professions, it's the same challenges. And so that's why in the book, I wrote it that way. So I would encourage you to buy the book, and I'd use it as a book club, and it'll begin to show you and using stories from your industry on how you can grow it. The first thing that you can do is to be self-aware, Ryan. And I think we've all been around people, maybe we've been guilty of it, where we do things and you look and you go, do they even know what they're projecting, or when they talk that way, or the tone of their voice, or those words, what they're projecting? People aren't even self-aware. So the initial step is this self-awareness of the words that you use, your tonality, and then how people respond, or God forbid, how they react to that. And so, it takes, there's a word mindfulness that's floated out there. I don't want this. Here's what I'm talking. Mindfulness is that you have this elongated perception. So I'm a big basketball fan. So Michael Jordan hired a mindfulness coach back in the 90s. What it gave him was an elongated perception, even if it was a second or two. And that's why it's imperative when you're with your clients or you're interacting, is that you stop and listen. And more often than not, we're giving scripting, or here's the 8 steps. And so we're in this mindset, it's what we say. And very much it's what you ask, whether it's during your consultation or whether it's as a leader and you're getting resolution to something, or even in your consultation, it's not what you say, it's what you ask. And what it's doing is it forces them to be engaged. It forces you to be engaged because now you're thinking about your intentions to ask a question to gain understanding. And so to answer your question, it's by the book. They'll give you a complete picture. It's written very clearly and concisely, Emotional Intelligence 2.0. The second thing is just stop and pause where you are in life, and especially when you feel emotionally challenged. Now, listen, you could be very excited too. And I encourage you to stop and go, okay, what am I excited about? What gets me excited? So that you can replicate that and that you can redirect your emotions to that point as well. And also realize what's upsetting you at the same time. And so that you can, one, identify it when it happens. So as an example, if somebody's constantly late and you find yourself flying off the handle at them, not that stylists are ever late, right? Please. I mean, other people, not industry. And you find yourself flying off the handle, emotional intelligence, let me stop and understand what's going on. And so you stop, you go, I get upset when they're not here, when they say they're going to be here. What that is that they made a promise and they broke that promise. And what happens is it's an integrity thing. They don't do what they say they're going to do. And ultimately, I can't trust them. So what I'm upset about is really the trust. That's someone with a high emotional intelligence. Now they realize, okay, normally I fly off the handle, but I need them to be productive when they come to work today because we're fully booked. Front desk called out sick, right? All right, let me do this. Tell them, listen, come in, know that I love you, and know that we got to have a conversation at the end of the day too. So what can I do to help you get back on track? That's a leader with a high emotional intelligence. It was a win-win in the sense that they didn't demoralize that person, right? They didn't set them up to be in a bad mood for the rest of the day. They realized, hey, I need them to be productive. I need my clients to be happy. Someone without a high emotional intelligence and doesn't stop to identify what's going on for them and understand it and adjust their behavior says, says, you know what, Ryan, you're late. You know that's unacceptable. We need to talk today. In the meantime, I want you to get back, put your cape on, and I want you to get to that client. Not that anyone, again, who's listening has ever done that, but realize what it sets in motion. Make sense to you? So I would love to give you something clear and concise. It's just, I don't want to mislead people. This takes work. It's rewiring your brain to stop.
And how important is it for stylists to work on themselves?
Well, I'd say there's a direct correlation between how you show up and where you are and how people experience you. So to answer your question directly, if on a scale of 1 to 10, it's a 10. I have seen people, that's not true. I was going to say I've seen people, and I think we all have, whose lives aren't in order, but yet the clients love them. However, I haven't seen somebody with a low emotional intelligence and their life's in disorder. What they'll do is they'll come in, they'll go, my life is a complete mess. My relationship's breaking, I'm not paying the rent, I'm still hungover from last night, but something clicks within them. And they go, you know what? It's showtime and I'm here. That person's paying me and now I got to live up to this. It's not about raising my prices. It's about, am I delivering the value of what I'm charging? So I think for anybody who wants to continue to grow their retention, like I said, their referral and their rebooking, their reviews, their relationships, and the trust in their recommendations, whatever those are, that it's imperative. On a scale of 1 to 10, it's a 10 that you are emotionally intelligent and that you're growing to become more emotionally intelligent, especially in this world that is so emotional. Generally, when there's emotion, especially a strong emotion, at the core, a human being has had a value violated. When somebody reacts very strongly emotionally, there's been a value. So it could be respect, authenticity. There's over 4,400 of them. But something's happened to breach the trust as well. And so that's why I want to shift people's thinking. Say, oh, you're just emotional, right? We hear that all the time. Our emotions serve us well. I mean, the emotion of fear helped us avoid the saber-toothed tiger, right? I mean, at a fundamental level, the challenge is with that emotional brain is it hasn't evolved over time. And it doesn't even differentiate between real and perceived danger. We treat the saber-toothed tiger and that anger and emotion over someone being late to work. We react the exact same way. Now, in the book, This versus That, I talk about some of these choices. In fact, the book is about choices. So responding versus reacting is one of them. The second book is really all about communication and what you do to raise your emotional intelligence. Those are the people who is interesting. There's a social psychologist, B.J. Gallagher, and she did this study and she found that 80% of the people who are failing in their current roles are failing due to a lack of interpersonal skills. So if you just stop there, whether you look at doctor, lawyer, politicians, stylists, they're failing due to a lack of interpersonal skills. And so I think this is the number one thing to work on. There's a study done in our industry, it is informal, but they ask clients why they leave a salon. 8 out of 10 leave for non-technical reasons. It's not the cut or the color. And so I just want to further validate, to answer your question, I think it's the single most important thing that you can do as a leader for yourself, and then you can model for your people, and that you hold them accountable to, and that your goals are based off of this emotional intelligence. Because you're more than ever, you're going to need that now. People are so emotionally in charge, and rightfully so. I mean, when else have we had to make financial decisions, health decisions, freedom decisions,
right.
With everything? And the people who are surviving are the people that can put this into context and turn this into a positive. I'll give you an example. You look at, and since we're talking to people in the salon industry, again, you can see this with doctors, lawyers, any service providers crosses over, is someone with a high emotional intelligence behind the chair realize, listen, I'm really stressed. I don't know if we're going to be open. I'm seeing 30% less people. I don't know how I'm going to pay my bills. My kid still has to go to school, or they have to attend. I have to pay full tuition. They're not going, whatever's going on. And somebody walks in. So they got all this emotional thing. And I think we've all had the clients where, they hate their job. They hate their wife. They hate their pickup. They hate country music. I mean, right? They just hate everything. And what do? We say, oh, how's it going? Someone with a high emotional intelligence will say, you know what? What's the best thing that's happened since I've seen you last? What's the one thing that's gotten you through? Someone with a high emotional intelligence can identify an emotion that, okay, I see this coming, understand that I'm not going to try to change your mind, and then adjust their behavior. And what they do is they use a question to redirect in the brain where their thinking is. And these are people that I've seen be successful be successful in the sense, not only financially, Ryan, but be able to navigate through their days, be successful at managing their emotions and their clients' emotions and their peers' emotions and their owners' emotions. And you could go down the line there, are people with a high emotional intelligence. And by the way, let me just preface it for anyone who's listening. This is not a cure-all. It will not make you immune from anything that you're going to encounter. It'll just give you a framework or a mechanism to navigate through this.
Yeah, nobody's perfect.
No.
But it's going to take constant work on ourselves to be able to show up as our best service stylist. It's best for our clients. It's important that we do that inner work. And it's very hard, I feel like, to tell our industry that they need to work more on themselves, the way they show up, because I feel like most stylists feel that they just need to work on their skills, get better at their coloring, get better at their cutting, get better at their highlights. And that's where they spend all of their focus. And of course, that is important. It's important to do a great service for everybody that sits in your chair. Yes. But if you're not showing up positively, if you're not being able to control the conversation, use words that are going to steer it in the direction where you know it's going to, I was just thinking about it being in a mindful way, you need to put the focus on them and make it about them so it's their experience.
You know, I love that you brought that up. And what you said was it's about them and it's their experience, because now more than ever, listen, if you're a mom, you know, in our industry, not only are the owners and the stylists primarily women, they're the primary breadwinners and caregivers, right? And so when you think, if you're working in a salon, even in, you know, a barbershop, whatever the case may be, but your clients come in, they're dealing with the way of the world. They really are. And then they have to come in, they wear a mask and things aren't familiar. It's disorienting to us. It really is. Don't lose that thought. Do me a favor, because my mind goes all over, Ryan. So I want you to keep keeping it about the client and their experience. So make that note so I come back to that. But I want to share this with you because as you guys listen, I just don't want to give you behaviors. I want to shift your thinking for you to understand what's going on, because if you don't like it and understand it, it's tough to deal with. We may not like it, but if we understand it, it may help. The brain, neuroscientists have found that the brain seeks out duration, path, and outcome. How long is something going to be? If I do everything I'm supposed to do, what will the outcome be? So can you see how disruptive 2020 is to people? We have no idea how long the virus is going to last. And now they're saying to wear masks and social distance, or you can get together with some people and you can't with others. But if you do this, we should be okay. And we may have a vaccine. And so we're confused. We have no idea how long it's going to last. And the path we're not even clear on. And even if we do what they say they're doing today, will that change? And what will the outcome be? Will I come back to a business that's 100%? Will I come back to a business that's 70%? So this is disconcerting to people. And now they come and sit in your chair. And so as a stylist, and this is what I've experienced firsthand, it's about humanity. It's not just about stylists. Is these kind of conversations, Ryan, is, oh, so what'd you guys do on your vacation? Oh, we went to Disney. Oh my God, we went to Disney. And so we stayed at this one resort, the sports theme resort. And then when we got there, our room wasn't ready and we had to wait. And then I was really, really upset. And they were really apologetic. And then they bumped us up to this. Have you ever heard they completely hijacked the conversation. Now more than ever, it is about them. And you need to be there for them. And so when people share with you, you know, you're going to hear heartbreaking stories. I don't know that my marriage is going to make it. You know what? I hate to say it, but I don't like my kids. You know, this home that we've lived in, we're not going to be able to stay in it. My job, I don't know what's going to happen. And we can't say, oh, I know how you feel. Yeah, same things going on for us. And you will excel in your client experience by being there for them and talking about them and sharing with them that tell them, listen, you've gone through a lot. You don't need to validate it. This is a little nuanced thing. You don't need to validate that things are bad. You can acknowledge it. Because if people say this is the worst, It's not. There's things that have gone on worse. If you don't feel that way, then it'd be disingenuous to go, oh, yeah, this is. You can just say, listen, it seems like it's taken a toll on you, or it's a lot to navigate. What's the one thing that gets you through? And they go, oh, I started reading, I started doing yoga, I found a new Chardonnay, I found God, I found whatever you found. So people with the high emotional intelligence, this is the work they do. And for those clients, I'm not minimizing cutting and coloring. I'm just saying you can do the perfect cut and color and they don't feel special, different, better. And it diminishes, it dilutes the entire experience. And I've seen people, not my best work, Jay, but the client goes, oh my God, I love it. I love you. And I'm going to be back. And so I think it's imperative now that I'm not minimizing your work. I'm just saying, by the way, this is interesting to me, is that I found, what is the definition of a good haircut? Because I think everyone who's a stylist and a cutter now has cut hair and gone, this may be some of the best work I've ever done, right? And I should be on the front of Vogue. And what does the client do?
It's like, it's okay.
Yeah. And then I'm sure everybody's done a cut.
Or can you fix this? Can you fix that? I don't, It's a little bit longer on this side.
And you go, no, this is, perfect. And then haven't you ever done a cut that you go, oh, dear God, just get me through the cut. And I swear I'll retire tomorrow. I'll stop. And the client goes, oh my God, I love this. But what I've learned is that it's very subjective. What's not subjective is the way that they feel. And so if you're listening, I am not minimizing the trust you build on your capability and results. I just don't want you to disproportionately not focus on the way that the client feels in the experience, because that will build loyalty.
Well, it's almost like focusing on delivering what they want, not necessarily what you want.
Yes.
I had to cut a mullet for somebody. My first professional haircut. It was one of those moments that I was just not proud of. I was working at Supercuts, and then I jumped into this high-end salon just straight out of the gate from Supercuts because I had this whole plan and it worked out. And I got this quick experience doing fast food haircuts, and I got really good at it. And then I'm like, all right, I'm going to kind of lie my way into a nice salon. So I went into this really nice salon and got the job. And one of my first haircuts was this really nice woman who came down and she said, all right, I'm really excited to get my haircut. If you can I want to keep it long and nice and feminine in the back, but I hate it when it gets in my eyes, and I don't really like it on my forehead that much. And I really don't like it when it touches my ears, but I don't want it to look like a mullet. And I'm just I sat down next to her and I just said, it's kind of the textbook definition of a mullet. And she's like, oh, that's fine. Just do it anyway. So with everybody watching around me, because this is my first haircut, everybody, just all the stylists that were working there for years are peering over and they just see me cutting this mullet. And you know what? I took the time to cut this perfect mullet on her. And she was so happy. She was like, this is the best haircut I have ever had. And to me, I'm thinking, don't tell anybody I did this.
I know, right?
But she was stoked. No. She was so happy. And that's all about delivering for them what they want, not saying like, no, I'm not going to do that. It's above me.
It's, and I think about...
Or sorry, below me. It's below me. That's what I think.
Yeah. Well, here's the thinking is you're not here to judge, you're here to help. So you're judging whether it's below or above. But to your credit, though, is that somehow that became the primary filter is how do I help? And you did a consultation. And that's what I mean is that your thinking was there. So I want to help her. I want her to be happy. And so no one need to tell you the behaviors you needed. You knew you need to ask questions. Were they 8 steps? Were they scripted? No. You found out, though, what made her happy. And even when, it may have contradicted maybe stylistically the direction, that's somewhat the high emotional intelligence to identify, hey, this isn't vibing with me. I understand because this is what I want to get away from. Yet your behavior was to go back in with her and say, hey, this would be what a mullet would be by definition, but you still got her collaboration and you got her commitment and her buy-in. And so she felt as though that you're listening. She felt as though you care. And so when you break down that story, you could break down any consultation that way. It's a series of questions and feedback. That's what it is. But it starts off with your intent to give you what you want. And they say, well, I just want to be happy and pretty. And to your credit, I don't know that I would have, you said, how do you define that? And she began to define it for you. So the lying I can't speak to, right? We have to handle that on a different level. But I admire your belief in yourself to talk yourself into that. But it's what we need now more than ever is I don't think we need scripting, and we need to shift our thinking. And I think if we can shift our thinking about what we do, and what we do is I have met stylists who believe that they change people's lives. Every time they come in, it's an opportunity to do it. And listen, if everyone doesn't take it that seriously, I've met people who say, Jay, it's just a haircut, and they do well as well. I just think if you're either coming out of school or you're stuck in your career, you feel as though that there's some rut and you want to re-energize yourself, the conversation we're having today about checking in on your emotional intelligence, about, revisiting your consultation and asking questions. And I write about this in the book, This Versus That, curious versus courteous. And we ask a lot of questions, just hey, how's it going? What do you think? How's the last haircut for you? It doesn't solicit any specific information. Curiosity goes deep. And, I wanted some feedback on the last haircut. So first thing I want to ask you is, how did it look day 3? I know how it looked day 1, day 2. And then I want to ask you is, where was your comfort level in replicating that look? After that, the next 28 to 31 days that, we saw each other. And, if I was going to be of help to you to give you a greater comfort level in however you replicate the look or extend the look, where would you want to have a greater comfort level? Is it around the products? Is it around the tools? Is it around how you use those things? That's where the consultation, I think, has the greatest opportunities to learn some of these emotional intelligence skills, to learn how to ask questions, to solicit feedback. I don't hear that verbiage and terminology when consultations are taught. I hear a little bit more scripting. And the reason I know is that when I talk to stylists and I ask them, what do you think the primary purpose of a consultation is? They say to sell product. And they say, well, what emotion do you attach to selling product? And this is after interviewing over 1,000 stylists. The top 3 emotions are anger, anxiety, and apprehension. Now, how are you going to do something well if those are your 3 emotions, right? Can you imagine going into a marriage that way, or parenting, or any activity? So I know we moved around in the conversation. I think what's consistent in the movement of conversation is all these things involve emotional intelligence and give you an opportunity to leave your mark, to make a difference with people. And that can show up in how you brand. Certainly it could show up in how you brand and that brandable experience for your clients. And I think that's the opportunity today, is that how do you create an experience that's so compelling that money becomes secondary? And I don't throw that out loosely. I will just tell you, I've seen more in the 8 months of people creating experiences and making money secondary to the experience. Now, it could be your local place that'll deliver to you. Our battery, some of you can relate to this. There's weeks we didn't go anywhere. Battery died in my wife's car. Called the mechanic. He said, hey, why don't I just drive out to your house? I'm about 3 miles away. He could have told me to tow it. But there's this emotional intelligence, there's this customizing, it's a brandable experience. So I did have a thought to take my car to the dealership, but you know what? The price became secondary to how he made me feel. And so I think strategically, if you're looking at 2021 and you want to double down on a focus to, this is the thing with goals, is that I'm doing a lot of work now because companies obviously are focusing on goals for 2021, is they're shifting the goal. I think the opportunity is to shift your thinking, not shift the goal. And so as a stylist, I would hold on to your goals and then shift your thinking. And if you had a goal, whatever it is, average ticket, retention, but whatever it is what do I need to do to what thinking do I need to shift? And I think if you can look at the client experience and you begin to incorporate this emotional intelligence, science has already shown what it'll do for you from a financial standpoint, and then all the little key performance indicators.
It also makes your job more fun. Once you start to put the focus on them as opposed to yourself, it takes the pressure off. It takes the fear out of it. It takes the anxiety out of it. If you're fully working on being in the moment and listening and responding with empathy, as opposed to just waiting for your chance to speak, then it's a whole different conversation.
I love that you articulated it that way, because any work that I do the premise is it's not what you say, it's what you ask. And think about if you went to a party. I was talking to someone this morning. They go, I get social anxiety in work situations because I go up to people and I don't know what to say. And I said, well, what if you thought about what you could ask? They go, oh, that'd change everything. And so when I go to a party, I don't feel any pressure because here's the thing, human nature, it's about everything does go back to building our significance, our self-worth, and our sense of belonging. That's where values come into play. And that's why we're drawn to people in situations that feed those things, and we're repulsed and angered by people who violate those things. And so when you say something, that's why speaking is so important. Because it's that speech that could determine your significant self-worth or sense of belonging in this community, position, whatever the case may be. It's the number one fear in America, by the way, which is probably no surprise to anyone. Death is number 7, if you're going to ask where that is on the list. So the reason, I'm sorry, I shared that with you is that when you ask questions, it shifts the dynamic. So instead of going to a party and going, okay, what can I say that would be cute, funny, charming, engaging? I just say, hey, my name is Jay. How do you know the host? To your point, it just eliminates the anxiety. When you think the greatest point of anxiety that I find with stylists is around selling product. And I'm not here to give you a retail class. I would never do that. What I would say to someone is, what questions can you ask? So instead of bringing 2 or 3 products, saying, well, here's the 2 or 3 products I use today, and here, if you can smell them, or putting them in a basket and putting them on top. And I can already see from people's body language what's going on there. And so can the other person, by the way. Is just ask him a question. And the one question that you could ask, I believe, is where's your comfort level in replicating the look that we created today? The next 3 to 4 weeks, say, see you, or the next 28 days, whatever, the booking is. And just on a scale of 1 to 10. And tell them this, so maybe I could be fair to you. If they can't answer that question, I would say, well, where's your comfort level that you have the products that you need? And it's interesting. People go, well, shampoo and conditioner. My conditioner's not working. My shampoo's fine. All of a sudden, it's just a conversation. And I go, oh, well, tell me about that. How well did it work at one point? When I first got it, it worked really well. But now it kind of flattens my hair. But do you see where it's a natural?
As opposed to trying to sell the benefits of it. Oh, this is
my gosh. They'll give you volume. They'll give you moisture. And it's like, the brain's not even there. But by asking questions, it redirects the conversation. The brain, unless it's uniquely qualified, think of FBI, CIA, Navy SEAL, like that type of individual, the brain's retrained. We answer questions we're asked. If I ask you how long you've been married, how long you had the podcast, how many kids do you have, your brain instantly answers these questions. Someone with the high emotional intelligence realizes that. And so they ask questions that guide them where they want to go. And
as opposed to, do you want to buy some products today?
Yeah, do you want to buy some products today? Or
no,
you
I'm
should
good.
Really buy this. Yeah, and then there's that awkward moment, right? Yeah, you had brought up something earlier that was interesting about how we show up. And there's something in psychology called the social comparison theory. And here's basically how it works, is that when people don't know how to respond, they just look for the highest ranking individual in the situation. So probably the easiest example is for the listeners, I'm sure you travel quite a bit. You ever been on a plane, there's turbulence? And, if you're like me, you get a little nervous. What's the first thing you hear? Hi, this is your flight attendant. We're experiencing a little turbulence. If you put your tray in an upright position, we'll be suspending the drink service and the movie just momentarily. And what do?
You want a drink.
You want to drink? Yeah, that's always the case. Yeah, which helps drink sales. Right, you calm down. Right. Yeah, you do want to drink. Yeah, I was looking for a different answer, Ryan, but that's the right answer too. Top 2.
That's where my head goes first. I'm like, okay, they understand that we're going to get through this, but I wish they had gotten to me first with the drink.
With the drinks, yes. But if they're perceptive, they'll have one right on their side and hand it to you. So through the story, I think people can relate that there is a calm that happens. And if you've ever been on a plane, which about 2 years ago, I think it was Iowa City that I was flying to, a smaller plane, and this was the announcement. We're experiencing a little turbulence. We're going to ask that you get in the crash position and your flight attendant will walk you through. Yeah. I was, and at that point, not that I'm more ready now, but I certainly wasn't ready to die. But where I was sitting in the jump seat was the flight attendant. And I looked over at her and I said, you just smile. Should I worry? She goes, nah. Okay. Social comparison theory. I look for the highest ranking individual. And so for stylists, it's imperative how you show up, because when you uncomfortably make a product recommendation and they can tell you're uncomfortable, now it's an uncomfortable situation. If you're emotionally not in a good place, or you get angry, or you're short with them, or you defend and explain, they defend and explain. They just mirror this behavior. And so it's important as a stylist that you understand the social comparison theory, that you can heavily weight how they show up by how you show up. So when you smile, the questions that you ask, how you respond, not react, but how you respond to situations will heavily influence. That's why, have you ever recommended a product to someone? They say, well, it's too expensive, right? And your first thing is, well, maybe we can give you a discount, or, maybe you could just get this product. They go, yeah, I don't know if I want it. What's happening is you're defending and explaining, and they mirror that behavior there. So as a stylist, the social comparison theory is imperative. And as people come into your salon, you got to be in a great mood, either to match theirs or to flip the other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's so many nuggets of information here that you're just sharing. And I just want to say you're making my job very easy. This has just been such a great conversation. One thing where I think this is just really where we can maybe steer this and then end there is, okay, so we're talking about how stylists in the hair industry show up for their clients, to be mindful, to really focus on them as opposed to themselves. In the world of social media, which is very narcissistic in a lot of ways. It's about me, 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 me. Look how amazing my life is. Look at all these things that I've done. Selfie, selfie, selfie. How can we take this you versus me approach and make it about others, but still deliver and practice mindfulness? Like how do we do that in this narcissistic social media world?
I'm going to be vulnerable with you. I struggle with social media for that reason, because in theory, the selfie, the definition is a picture of myself. And it really is, look at me. That's why you're putting it out there. If you didn't want people to look at you, you wouldn't put it out there. So in itself is not bad. I have not learned how to navigate it. So, probably for you, there is a benefit to me using social media. And so I need to break things down, and it is not bad. It's not. My struggle is I can't shift my thinking around it. But social media in itself is not bad. There's a lot of good that it does socially, and certainly for business, for families. And there's a lot of things that are less than. What I would say for myself is that I could not regulate my emotions. Someone else is doing what I'm doing. I'm like, why'd they hire them instead of me? Like, I know them, right? Or, oh, they traveled there. Right? Does this sound familiar? What happens is this comparison. And so just as a small nugget, you will rob yourself of any joy in life if you compare yourself to other people. That's just a small, but for some reason, I still can't even regulate that myself. And so I am on social media, in Facebook and Instagram, because business standpoint, it has been beneficial for all the reasons you know. I am not on there socially. And so what happened was, is it good? Is there good that can come from it? Yes. Do I want to do it? No. Does it need to be done? Yes. And this is where the power of asking questions, even of yourself, understanding how the brain works, that you can redirect the brain to get the information you need. So the question I asked myself, I already know why I don't want to be on social media, because I can't regulate all the emotions. That was no longer, it was interesting, but not useful to me. I had to ask myself a what question. So in the book, This versus That, I talk about what versus why, and I'm talking about questions. And so a what question was, or a how question, I asked, well, how could I be on social media and not expose my insecurities on a daily basis? It came to just like that. I'll just hire someone to do it. Once you realize how the brain works, these things become very easy. And so for social media, what I would say is, if you're struggling with that, or it feels like somehow incongruent, what you're saying and what you're doing, yet you need to be out there, is to ask yourself, how could it happen so that I could project the brand I want to do and do it in a way that's comfortable and congruent with who I am? Because you have to be true to yourself. And that's where I struggle. And so now it gets done, and people have different filters. I'm thinking it's look at me. They go, Jay, trust me, they're not looking at your hair or your smile, which would be funny to anybody who can't see me because I have a shaved head. They're not focusing on that stuff. They're focusing on something different. And I've kind of learned this. This has been my takeaway the last 8 months. Things are what they are. It's your thinking that drives your emotion around it. Because going on social media to me is this huge thing I just bared my soul to. And for this other person, it's just what I do. And that has been my learning from these 8 months. I share this story, and it might be a nice way to wrap everything. And I tell this story in the book, is that there's a church that had been around for 96 years, no neighbors to the left or to the right. One day a for sale sign goes up, the exact same day a sold sign goes up. So one of the members goes down to the township, find out who their neighbors are. It turns out it's a strip club. So if you're with me in the story, there's a strip club and there's a church. So the member goes back, and their thinking is that this is immoral, this is wrong. And their emotions were anger and resentment. And their behavior was to get together a group of people who would picket and petition. Now there's another member of the church, and her thinking is, we're just here to help. And there was compassion and understanding those emotions. And her behavior, she got together a group of people that get together on Saturday nights, and for 2 hours they cook eggs, pancakes, bacon, and they would serve the unserved at 2:00 in the morning. And I ask you, what's the difference in that story between picketing and pancakes? It was the people's thinking that drove their emotions, that drove their behavior. And now listen, the church, for those of you who don't go, it's like any business. They want to get more people in that church, more butts in the seat. Which thinking do you think got that in performance? And so a church next to a strip club, it is what it is. I bet everybody listening to the story is like, oh, okay, there's no way anything good morally can come from this story. And so, Ryan, that's what I've really doubled down on now, is that things are what they are. It will be my thinking that will drive my emotions, that will drive my behavior, that will ultimately affect my performance. And when I work with groups and I work with teams and individuals, I don't start with behavior driving your performance. I start with your thinking.
That's amazing. Jay, thank you so much for being here on the Hairpreneur Show today. How can people get your book, This Versus That, and Leave Your Mark?
Okay, so for This Versus That, this is where I'm not good at the social media, it feels narcissistic. That being said, to get a hold of me, you can go to jaywilliamsco.com. So just after I told you that story about not being narcissistic, I used my name. So jaywilliamsco.com, and that'll take you to the website, and we can connect that way. My commitment is that I will get back to everyone within 24 hours. So I want you to know that. So that's where you can also get both books. So This Versus That, if you're listening and that's on the forefront of your mind, you can go to thisvsthatbook.com and you'll get the book there. For both books, you can go to jaywilliamsco.com. Again, Leave Your Mark, 100% of the profits of that go towards stopping human trafficking. And so I think, we share at the beginning, it checks all the boxes, I think, for what we do and who we are as people, including leaving your mark. So that's where 100% of the profits of that go.
Well, Jay, thank you for leaving your mark on this show.
Well, I appreciate you having me. And I always a genuine thank you, because people like myself that have been doing this for a few years, we didn't have people like yourself that we could get, our messaging and the things we're passionate about. So I know you guys do this for free, really. So I'm very grateful that you lend your audience and you trust with me, and hopefully trust them with me or me with them. And hopefully I didn't do anything to ruin that in the process.
No, man, this has been fantastic. And I do want to get you on again sometime in the near future.
Oh, good. I would love that. Thank you.
Thanks. I love hearing from you. And by the way, have you subscribed to the podcast yet? Oh my gosh, if you haven't, please do so right now, because there's so much cool stuff ahead. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, because it would be much cooler if you did. Plus, I don't want you to miss any of the new episodes I'm dropping weekly. Last thing, if you haven't checked out ryanweeden.com yet, there are some great freebies on there that I want to give you. So go ahead and check it out, ryanweeden.com. Thank you so much for listening. You are awesome.